Good evening and welcome to Empower You. I'm Betty Overstreet, the Empower You's Community Relations Director. I'd like to start off by telling you how Empower You started. It was founded by Dan Reginald back in 2011, and his vision, he's also the founder and CEO of Frame USA. And his vision was to present classes on a number of different topics in and around the city, which Empower You used to go all over. Now we come here to this great studio that Dan has provided for us. We try in all of our classes to engage you, to most of all educate you. So I can tell by the crowd here tonight that you're all ready to go out and get active in something. Maybe your school board, maybe you're going to get Kavanaugh confirmed to the Supreme Court. I don't know what your goal is. Also, all of our classes, or most of our classes, are live streamed. So if a class is live streamed, it will be up on our website within a day or two. If you have any friends that couldn't make it to the class, let them know that they can go on our website and watch it. Or if you want to go back and watch it yourself, you can do that. We also welcome any feedback that you may have, negative or positive. We also like to get suggestions. A lot of our classes, not a lot, but some of our classes come from our audience who gives us ideas. You can go to info@empoweruohio.org. We also run strictly by donations. So towards the end of the class, we will pass around buckets. Any donation you feel you'd like to give to keep us going, we very much appreciate. Also, at the end of the class, we will be taking questions. If you have a question, raise your hand and wait for somebody to bring a microphone to you so that everyone can hear your question, especially those online. Next, I'd like to just go over a few of the classes that are coming up. On Thursday of this week, we're going to be at Wiedemann Brewery. This is going to be our fun class. They just opened back in the springtime, and we're going to go down and tour their facility and taste their craft beers and have some appetizers and just have a great time. We limited that class. There's still 9 openings, or at least there was earlier today. So if you're interested in going, there may still be a spot open for you. Next Tuesday, we have school choice. And school choice is something that parents in Ohio would like to have for their students. So we're going to have a speaker here to talk about that. Next Thursday, we have mental wellness for veterans. That's going to be held at the Sharonville VFW. If you know any veteran that might benefit from this, please get the word to them. The speaker that night is, she's very much in demand, and we were really lucky to get her for this class. She's an expert in her field and speaks a lot on PTSD. So we're hoping to get a lot of veterans out for that class. And next, I'd like to introduce Dan Reginald, who's the Empower You Managing Board Member.
Thank you. Thanks, Betty. You want to help me draw? Okay, so tonight's session is all about getting your hands, getting dirty, getting in the game. So we've got you a Home Depot card to help you kind of get geared up to be active, and we're going to draw your number. So get your ticket out. And the number is?
028.
028. Okay. Mel. Let's give our hand up for Mel. Congratulations. Enjoy. Thank you, Betty. So, a couple things I wanted to go over with you before we got started. So last night, I had a chance to go up to Dayton to talk to a group called the Miami Valley Citizens Informed. And it was kind of a crowd I'd never had a chance to talk to before, so I went up there, and the speaker, the woman who kind of runs the event, I don't know, have you ever been up there to talk to them or anything like that? She said it's a kind of tough audience. She said, you know, you better bring something to kind of help them get to know you a little bit. So I scratched my head a little bit, and I thought, well, what could I do to help them get to know me? So I thought, well, I should do the obvious. I'll take my high school yearbook. And so, you know, I grabbed the yearbook and took it up there, and, you know, I paper clipped the pages that had all the pictures of me in it and stuff, and put it out on the table. And I started my presentation. I was talking to them about rules for radicals. a book that I've talked about a couple times. And one of the people in the audience kind of raised their hand, and I was thinking, I just started, I didn't really want to stop, but I did, and I said, yeah, what could I answer for you? She said, well, I saw in that yearbook, it said that you were one of the founding members of the Ralph Club. What does that mean? And it kind of went downhill from there. So I hope tonight goes better. We didn't have a great sign up for this class, and I wondered, because we've got just four incredible speakers to talk to you tonight. I'm so excited about hearing them, and I don't know, I just began to think about the word activist and what it means, and how kind of scary and in your face that word means. And when we taught a class on activism about a year or so ago, we took a poll. And we asked about 85 people, do you consider yourself an activist? And this is in this room, so the room was pretty filled. And 44 of the 85 people raised their hands and said, yes, I consider myself an activist. But last night I took the same poll, and only 2 out of 70 people said they were. So I don't know if that's changed a little bit over time or whatever. But it's just a great thing to have a chance to get into your community and do great things and make changes that need to be made to groups that can get lethargic over time and don't change. And tonight, that's what we're going to try to teach you, a few tips and tricks on how to do that. I just have to divert in one other area. So Betty, okay, so this is our Empowered Citizen Award. If you take 12 classes over 2 semesters, Lou, I don't think you're going to be here for that many, but you get an award like this. And so my daughter, who's come to a grand total of 2 classes ever out of the 350, she wrote me a note. She's coming to the Weedman beer class on Thursday night. Okay, and she said, and I just want to tell you exactly what she said, Betty, and I'm going to need you to answer a question for me. Betty, I'm going to need you to answer a question for me. She said, if I drink more than 1 beer, do I get 2 points for the class? What do I tell her, Betty? She's got to show up. Okay, so that's going to be a fun class. I think we've got 9 spots left. And our host for that is our board member, Ken Bowman, who's right here. Would you give him a round of applause? He's a great guy, right there. Yeah. And Weedman's in St. Bernard, right? Is it right by Ivorydale? Roger Bacon High School. So at the end of the night tonight, yeah, Jay, you okay? Okay. At the end of the night tonight, we're going to try to take questions at the end. If something is really pressing, you really want to get an answer to, raise your hand and we'll get a microphone. But we've got, I think, people online. We're thrilled you're here. Welcome. And one of the great things about Empower You, I don't know if you've noticed, you can go back and watch any class. Now, they're all taped. They're all on video. So if you miss one, you can just go on the website, find the class. The classes that have happened are at the bottom of the page. Just click and you can watch the whole thing. And you can fast forward through the parts you don't like. But at the very end, if there's time, I would like to share with you my 2 most fun, favorite moments ever of kind of being an activist. So I hope we have time at the end for me to share those 2 things with you. But let's get started. We're going to go in alphabetical order tonight. A great friend is going to be the first person up. He's talking to us from, Jay, what city in Colorado? Let's just say Colorado, but this will be the first person up, and he's going to be joining us by Zoom, will be Ed Bell. Many of you probably know Gina and Ed Bell, 2 great community-minded people who just recently moved out west. But Ed spent over a decade organizing liberty-minded citizens to engage in products focused on bringing greater accountability and transparency to all levels of governments. In 2009, Ed, Gina, and our producer, Jay, formed a Tea Party group that educated the public about the workings of government. Ed was involved in initiatives like Ohio Healthcare Freedom Amendment and Ohio State Tax, and he also served as the campaign manager for Chris Monzell in 2014. In 2015 to 2017, Ed served as Southwest Ohio Field Director with Concerns Veterans for America. This organization advanced legislative policy issues to reform the VA and improve the quality of life for Americans veterans. In the years I knew Ed, which were many, I'd never seen one person who could make so many phone calls, call so many people to talk to them about candidates that he supported, as well as visit them. I thought if you're in a position to visit a candidate over the next month, that this guy would be able to give you some tips on how to do it. So let's welcome, we'll see if it works, Ed.
Hello, everyone.
Bell.
Hi, Cincinnati. Great to be back, even if it's only virtually. I sure wish I could be there in a couple of days for the Wiedemann Brewery tour. Darn it. Well, Gina and I have been giving some thought to some of the things that you could do to really make a difference. And some of the folks listening tonight are probably wanting to just be more engaged, informed volunteers, and others might want to kind of take it to the next level and maybe get more involved in political party activities, or just be more of a community activist in their neighborhood. So we're trying to maybe touch on a little bit of both, and I have a couple of things to share with you that kind of show the two different directions you can go with this. Let me do this now. We always hear that one person can make a difference as an activist or a voter, of course. And meeting your local officials and other area activists to learn about community issues is really the first step, because you don't know what your passion is until you get a chance to see what issues are going on in your community. So you need to ask the questions of your officials, and because of course you do employ them. I'm going to start with kind of the meat and potatoes of going door to door, making phone calls. We did a lot of that, especially with Concerned Veterans for America. The biggest thing, the obstacle that I think we all have to overcome is getting out there and maybe talking to folks that are, disinterested at the door or on the phone, and then going on to the next one and continuing to not let it get you down, to keep your chin up and keep pushing ahead. As you learn so much from each call that you make or each door knock. It becomes easier, and you're definitely going to become more effective because you kind of can anticipate the questions that you're going to get. A lot of the folks in the room I know probably have already done some of each of those. Some really enjoy it. I notice that folks that are in the sales business or teachers tend to do a better job because they're used to standing in front of a sometimes hostile audience. But I think the biggest thing to do is, whether you're on the phone or at the door, you got to make it local. You got to establish connection with the people there. Even if you're not in your own neighborhood, I always said, I'm out in the community today because I care about this school board issue or this congressional race, or whatever the topic is. You need to let them know that you're not coming in from somewhere in Washington or somewhere to talk about an issue as some paid advocate. You're a volunteer. You really care about the issue, and you got to let folks see your passion. And you need to be clear about the action that you're looking to accomplish, whether it's, hey, next week, October 10th is the beginning of early voting. Do you like to vote at the polls, or did you get your absentee ballot? Do you like to vote absentee? Leave it an open-ended question where people don't say yes or no, to initiate some conversation. That's the goal, conversation, right? You want to contact whether it's contacting your legislator, you want them to attend a public hearing about an issue. All of those things are important. So you got to let the voter hear and see your passion for the issue. And I try not to, a couple things going door to door, and a couple things going door to door that I was thinking about. We did a lot of door to door with Concerned Veterans for America, and you need to canvass or call in teams. Find an activist partner or two, friends maybe in the neighborhood. There's a lot of safety and confidence in numbers. You can encourage each other. Obviously, going door to door is something you can do alone, but I think you find it's a lot more fulfilling to do it with someone where you can share experiences. We used to find that a driver and 2 teams of 2 door knockers was the optimal amount. This is getting a little bit into the weeds, but I think if you're going to do some door knocking, excuse me just a moment, please. If you're going to do some door knocking, the person driving can be the navigator and help find the areas that you want to go. 2 teams of 2 will go door to door and draw off in different areas. And then after that person that's driving can go into the outline homes and get to them, and you can really cover a lot of area quickly. So you need to be aware of the neighborhood and the demographics of the area, priorities of the folks that live there. I'm thinking about the like Montgomery versus maybe somewhere in the inner city. They have different issues, and you want to attack those issues. You want to present a few clear points and tailor those to your demographic. You don't want to take your voter too far into the weeds. Just touch on the big selling point that you want them to understand. But you need to know a lot more about it in case somebody wants to challenge you and really learn a lot more. You want to craft your message or your point with some winning themes. Now, everybody's got some issues that they think people care about universally. I think there's 3 general topics that people love to, or at least they're not going to be against. They're going to be, to some level, care very deeply about fairness, freedom, and transparency. I was thinking about the recent issue that Gina and I followed closely this summer, the collection of signatures regarding the sales tax. And the fairness issue was important. We saw 2 commissioners, the majority on the commission, were eager to cut the voter out of the decision-making process, cut the taxpayer that has to carry the burden. There's a sense of innate unfairness to that, and that's why signatures were easy to obtain. Transparency, nobody likes a cover-up. I know in Power Use had many classes where they were all about the sunshine laws because you wanted to know what your government's up to. You don't like cover-ups. The key decisions must have some public notice and input. I think I heard Kim on the radio this morning. She was talking about oversight and transparency. So those are all key things that if you can make your bullet points or even your candidate touch on those issues, I think you're going to have a lot of success. Let me move on here. For those folks that are more inclined to become a true organizer, a true community organizer, even if it's just in your community, in your precinct, obviously networking and attending local meetings is critical. School board, township trustees, village council, county commission meetings. At least once in a while, you probably need to go and attend those. A friend of mine, Matt Kibbe, always says, government goes to those who show up. And that couldn't be more true. You want to create and frequently update a spreadsheet of volunteers. I think for the organizer, that's the most important thing. You need to know who you can work with in your community and continually build on that. Get their name and phone number when they're available. When they're not. Find out the area of interest. Everybody's got something different, whether it's healthcare or education or just high taxation. And then you can know who to call for each topic when you're going door to door. You want to review and populate from your email list. Gosh, I get so many emails still from friends in Ohio and even out here that have a long email list. You see on their BCC just 50, 60, 100 people who obviously share some of their concerns. Local Facebook friends, you can review your list and see who just might be amenable to joining you in going door to door or making phone calls. Be understanding of others' time constraints. And discuss the political topics with your neighbors. I know we were all told when we were kids, I know I was, don't discuss religion or politics. Well, you know what? Back before 2007 and 8, and for years prior to that, at the YMCA, that was where all the daily political conversation took place. Gina and I would be talking to people from around the neighborhood, Blue Ash, Montgomery, Kenwood, at the YMCA, and that is where the Tea Party group that we had initiated from those folks that felt like something more needed to be done. They needed to get more involved. The PTO, barbershop, your salon, your festivals, work a booth at a festival if there's one there for a political party or an issue you care about. Voter information lists are public. They're customizable to your precincts with demographic information. I served for a while as a precinct exec on Central Committee. I think some of you might know Rick Herron. He always says the school committee member is the single most important political office in the land, and he couldn't be more right. Your county board of elections can assist you with selecting and downloading targeted voters if you want to go out on your street or in your community or anywhere else in the county. So you can also, if you're doing some things with folks in the neighborhood, always an enjoyable activity for your volunteers, a grill out, a happy hour, a get together of some kind. Go to a movie that you all would like to see or some other social event. All of those things happen and give you a chance to share those experiences because we need to celebrate our victories or commiserate in defeat. The volunteers are in your neighborhood. Obviously, and Gina made sure I mentioned this too. She said you kind of need a thick skin because rejection on the phone or at the door should not be taken too personally. Maybe get to know a printer. If you're going to be a true organizer, materials can be expensive to produce. Work with organizations and nonprofits when they're aligned with your values and goals. I worked with Concerned Veterans for America because they had some really important issues, and we saw the innate unfairness of the way a lot of our veterans were treated in VA hospitals. And we got legislation pushed through at the national level with both parties and the last president in agreement. That was phenomenal. And it happened because it was, everybody agrees that was patently unfair and things needed to change and improve. Organizations have the financial, volunteer, and knowledge resources to help you in your mission. I know there's a lot of great organizations that work year round and some that work just leading up to Election Day. The NRA, of course, for the Second Amendment, Susan B. Anthony Project for pro-life advocates, of course, Americans for Prosperity and others. If you don't agree with what they're working on, obviously, find another way to spend your time. But, there's plenty of ways to get to really be effective. And these organizations can help you with, some of the things, the materials you need. You should always have a material at the door. That one-on-one connection is so important, and having a material gives you time to highlight a certain specific bullet point or topic and give you a little bit more time when you're talking to folks at the door. I think I have to say you should consider running for Central Committee in your community. Central Committee as the precinct executive, ward chair, and all the way up is really the best way to get to know everybody that's active and working on policy issues in your community. So those were a few things that came to mind right out of the gate. Obviously, I could get into the weeds on a lot more. I'll take this opportunity to ask if anybody had any specific question that came to mind.
Any questions for Ed? And we will get you the documents. Ed, the one thing we couldn't do was see the handouts super well. Can you send those over in an email? We'll pass them out to everybody when they leave tonight.
Absolutely, be happy to.
Okay, great. Any questions for Ed about campaigning? Yes, right here. And the handheld mic, just let me grab that handheld. Is it up? Okay, thank you. Say your first name, please.
My name is Carl, and I was wondering, do you have any suggestions to the older generation about how to use social media when campaigning?
I don't want to jump too much on Kim's thoughts on that because I know she was going to touch on it a little bit. But, every event that I went to, not only as, a field director with Concerned Vets, but also just even now, any political or community or civic event, Facebook Live is an amazing tool that brings all of this, all of the opportunity to get the word out on anything you see immediately. And I mean, obviously, you want to accumulate enough friends on your public feed that you're getting folks to see what you're presenting. But any political event, and you're hearing a speaker that you like, for goodness sake, please go to Facebook Live immediately and pump it out there while it's happening. It records it, and people can review it after the fact and comment and share it. So I think, obviously there's other tools. Instagram is good, but I think Gina and I have always used both Twitter and Facebook extensively. And, have a group of people that if it's something that you're going to an important event that you're going to either take photos or Facebook Live and share it, and ask them, make sure they're friends, ask them to please share it also. Make sure they're aware of it beforehand so they can share it. And you're going to cover hundreds or sometimes thousands of people. And you can also retweet that exact same link. So you can get a double bump for your time. Is that helpful at all?
We've got one more real quick.
Ed Bell, just a comment from Ken Bowman. We miss you.
Thank you. Ed, by the way,
we miss you too, Ken.
You're looking great tonight. So, Ed, are you able to stay with us till the end so we can ask some more questions at the end?
Yes, I'm really hearing everybody else's thoughts. Absolutely.
Great. And so let's go ahead and let's thank Ed Bell for joining us tonight, everybody. We're going to move on to our second speaker. Jeff Capel has been a citizen activist for many years and was referred to as the citizen watchdog by the Cincinnati Enquirer. He works as an economist, and he was recently elected to his first term on Blue Ash City Council and is chairman and co-founder of No More Stadium Taxes. In addition to fighting stadium taxes and subsidies, Jeff took a leadership role in stopping both the 2007 jail tax and the 2014 efforts to raise the county sales tax to renovate Music Hall. He's frequently sought by TV, radio, and newspapers for his analysis and commentary on taxes, spending, economics, transparency, and government ethics. Let's give Jeff a round of applause. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all for being here. I'm going to cover some of the ins and outs of being active. You guys hearing okay in the back?
Jay, are we?
I can hear you, but I don't.
Is Jeff's mic on?
Or I can do handheld.
There you go.
Oh, that sounds
You're
like it's
good.
on. Okay. So I'll kind of go in the ins and outs of being an activist, and then at the end, cover a bit about social media, which I know has come up already. The first step, and a step that an awful lot of people can never get past, is when there's an issue you care about, especially if there's an issue going on like right now, you just have to dive in and do it. Don't worry that you're not an expert on everything, because if you don't step up and advocate for your side of the issue, there may not be anybody who does it. What you often see in government is it's a two-sided discussion where one side is the people who have their hand out for your tax dollars, and the other side is the elected officials who have the tax dollars to give. That's too often what we see. And so what we need are citizen activists who will step in at that point and provide a true two-sided discussion where the people who want our tax dollars now have to justify it and get fought by the people who want to say that you're either asking for too much or it's just simply not something that government should be doing. One thing that can play into our hands, and as conservatives, we don't often hear it, but media will generally like it when we do something like that. And the reason is because media can write and produce far more compelling stories when there are two sides of an issue and there's a lot of back and forth going on, rather if they're just there being the stenographer for that two-sided discussion between the people who want tax dollars and the people who have the tax dollars to hand out. Now, yes, the majority of reporters are liberal, but then keep in mind, the more local of an issue we get, which is primarily what we deal with, the less ideology becomes into it. And I've also noticed there's a pretty big difference between the news side of a newspaper and the editorial side. Even papers that are constantly producing these annoying liberal editorials, the reporters who are writing the stories usually want to just produce good stories and get it right. So, keep that in mind, and keep in mind as you're trying to work with media to get your side out that they have a job to do. And so the more you can gear your activities towards helping them do their job well, the more results you'll get, and I think usually the more warm that they'll be towards you. So, tips to keep in mind there is produce good information for them, or sometimes you'll hear people sarcastically say, tell me something I don't know. Well, tell them something they don't know. Give them good snappy quotes. They fit into a news story better than just kind of the boring generic professor at the lectern. And one thing I've noticed too, and I've been able to do this a few times, is when you can kind of get the overview of how their story is shaping up, you may have an opportunity to give them a tip on how to make the story better. I mean, I've been able to do that a few times. Like one example I'll give is when I was fighting the music hall issue, I had one TV reporter over talking about interviewing me for a story. And we were just at the point there where there was getting to be some serious conversation between getting music hall out of that arts tax and just keeping it at Union Terminal. It was just starting to shape up. And what I said to him is, have you looked more into that? Because I'm hearing a lot more about how that may be where this is going. And so then he brought his cameraman back, talked with me some more, and that actually, that night became a pretty strong focus of the story. And so, I mean, not only did I help him do his job better, but that's what we were trying to do as well. We wanted to get music hall out of that tax. So again, it's where if you realize they have a job to do, help them do your job while you're doing your own job. That's kind of one way where you can work with a liberal-dominated media. Second big thing to do is you got to do your research. You may not be an expert on everything, and as Dan will recall on the whole music hall Union Terminal issue, the other side had an expert on every stinking thing that you could think of. They had their museum experts and their engineering experts and their architectural experts and their government finance experts. They had their team of lobbyists that they could pay. They had their staff members that could work full time on this. We had none of that. So you're not going to match all that, but you've got to learn the issue. So that's where you go online, use Google, learn the issue as best as you can. Definitely, one thing you want to try to do is find old promises that may have been made on an issue before. And if there's been prior acts of incompetence from that side, that can really help you as well. And the example where that worked really well with me is on the stadium issue. Jeff Birding is the general manager and president of FC Cincinnati. He was also the campaign manager for the 1996 stadium sales tax campaign. And what I found a few weeks before the first public hearing on this issue is a flyer from the 1996 stadium tax campaign that highlighted some things. But at that point, what Birding was trying to do on the FC Cincinnati issue is extend the stadium sales tax for FC Cincinnati, because obviously we weren't paying enough money for the Bengals and the Reds. Birding then wanted to slide a third team into that too. So what I did is found a flyer from the 1996 campaign that he produced, which explicitly said that that sales tax was for 2 stadiums only, that it should last only 20 years, and it's going to last about 40 years, and that the tax would expire once those 2 stadiums were paid off. And then what I did with it is I didn't just lose my cool and go throw it online. I waited until the first public hearing on the issue, then passed it out to the reporters and the commissioners. Then I took the podium and gave my presentation, which focused on that flyer. So that was a way where I was able to, by doing good research and finding some acts of incompetence and old promises from the other side, that really helped kill any thought that there was going to be a sales tax money going to the FC Cincinnati Stadium. And then I'd say like the third big thing that we have to do, and especially as conservatives, we sometimes have to do better, is really focus on finding and crafting good and effective arguments. Sometimes we get caught in a trap of just repeating ideological statements or asking what would Reagan do. And okay, that's fine if we're talking to ourselves, but usually on these issues, we're already on the same side of that. We've got to get beyond that. And that's where it goes back to my second point of really doing your research, where we need to find good substantive arguments. It's important to know what your target audience is. If you're fighting a school levy that's already on the ballot, your target audience is everybody who's showing up to vote. The goal is to get 50% plus 1 of the voters. Now, on many parts of the stadium issue or the music hall issue, our target audience was 3 people, the county commissioners. And really, you could even argue it might have just been one person, because at least on the music hall issue, for example, we knew that Chris Monzel was going to be a fiscal conservative. We knew that Commissioner Portune was going to spend as much as he could get away with. And then that kind of left Greg Hartman in the middle. And Hartman, in fact, initially it looked like Hartman was going to go a little more on Portune's side. So really, I mean, the entire focus of what we needed to do was convince Greg Hartman to think more like Chris Monzel. And finally, by the last few days of that battle, we actually largely succeeded in that. We got to keep in mind that as we're making our arguments, we're not there to impress ourselves. We want to make the arguments that impress the decision makers. One time on the music hall issue, when I had to do that is when I gave my overall presentation to the commissioners, where I was kind of purposely throwing out a lot of different things, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work. I compared the potential of this issue to end up as badly as the stadiums and the streetcar did. Now, hey, I think it's a great argument, but then when Commissioner Hartman was asked about that later, and he said, well, I'm not really sure that was a fair comparison. There's a lot of differences here. Then that's all I need to know, that I've got to really not be pursuing that argument further. If we need a county commissioner to vote with us and he's not impressed with a certain argument I'm making, then we've got to really de-emphasize that argument and shift towards something that the commissioner is going to be more impressed with. And then my last thing on that issue is, I don't know if anybody's familiar with that old MTV cartoon, Beavis and Butthead. If I had a slideshow, I'd put them up right now. I'll just say, if you're not familiar with them, they're 2 really low IQ teenage boys who are very vulgar. They sit there at their computer laughing at everything. They think everything is so impressive and funny. And what I noticed, too many political consultants and activists alike sit there like Beavis and Butthead, thinking that every piece of information they come across is really impressive and they got to get it out to everybody, and it's gonna be a game changer. I see people just too often, they'll learn something new, and then the very next time they're in public or sending an email out, they just throw it in there. And whether they're throwing in stuff that's it's either contrary to what they're trying to do, or it's irrelevant to what they're trying to do, or maybe even it's minimally helpful, but not something you need to focus on. So basically, don't sit there like Beavis and Butthead, just being impressed with everything you see across your screen. Hone in on the arguments that are most effective. And then similar to that point is, when you're an activist on an issue, you are not there to impress the other side. If you're fighting a school levy, you're not there to be seen as the reasonable one from the superintendent or the school board. When we were fighting the music hall issue, I couldn't give a crap if Doug McDonald and the other people at the museums thought that I was making reasonable arguments. They can worry about their own side, I'll worry about my side. And especially when you get online, stay focused on what your task is. Don't let the negativity towards people on the other side get you down. Like, you'll especially see this in school levies. I mean, if you oppose a school levy, immediately you hate all children, you hate all teachers, you want to kill education, and they'll just send their swarms of activists at you. I mean, this could be any number of issues. I face that a lot with the FC Cincinnati crowd. You talk about a bunch of low IQ people. But you don't let their negativity get to you. And at some point, just stop dealing with it so much. If you got to hit the block button, do it. You got to move on. Last point I'll make that's right on the line of what we've been talking about here before I move on a bit, is don't get indignant that the other side exists. That happens a lot. We don't do it as much. Usually you'll see this more often with the people who are in the establishment side of things. So you'll see it with a superintendent or a museum director or a general manager of a soccer team, is they just get so upset that there even is opposition to their wonderful, awesome idea that they will say and do some pretty bad, pretty dumb things that undercut them. But sometimes our side can do that as well. And we don't want to be upset that there are people on the other side of an issue. I just take it as a given that there's going to be 2 sides to an issue and go from there. Only thing I'm going to mention on just specific arguments that you sometimes come up. that sometimes come up on these is number one is remember that everything is said to create jobs. So if you're building new schools, you're renovating a museum, you're building a stadium, I mean, literally every project out there where public money is desired, they will say it will create jobs. Now, part of it is because in some sense, everything will have some economic impact. If you build a whole bunch of brick walls in the middle of cornfields, that creates jobs. There's some economic impact there because you're paying the workers to build the big brick walls in a cornfield, and then they go out and spend the money. But you have to look at our opportunity cost, which is basically what would be the next most effective way to spend that money. So, for example, on stadiums, research has shown over 30 years that spending money on stadiums or sports teams is about the least effective thing that you can do with a public dollar. I mean, yeah, it'll create a little bit here and there, but if you spent the money more effectively, you would create a whole lot more jobs, get a whole lot more economic activity, and that would bring in a lot more tax revenue. And one of the ways that they will justify this is to create these phony economic impact studies. I'm sure you've heard of those before, where they'll run down to UC, the UC Economics Department or someone similar, which will then create these reports that say, if you build these brick walls in the cornfields, it'll create 500 jobs and it'll have an economic impact of $32 million.
I did.
When they throw out that number, economic impact, all that means is that's the amount of money that changes hands. It's not the amount of tax revenue coming in. And so where they try to confuse you with that is let's say they have a request to spend $100 million renovating a museum, and they'll say it'll have an annual economic impact of $40 million a year. What they want you to think is that you're getting a 40% return on that. But it's not $40 million going to the government. It just means $40 million are changing hands. If I go spend $6 at McDonald's tonight, Hamilton County is not getting $6. It's just I'm giving McDonald's $6. One thing we always have to keep in mind on issues is, realize when it's not lining up exactly the way you want and just make plans to deal with that. Dan and I had to deal with that on the Union Hall or the Union Terminal Music Hall issue. Clearly there was going to be a majority of commissioners that were going to vote to put something on the ballot. And part of it is just because at least two of them wanted to get this issue past them and not have to keep dealing with it over and over again. So we knew something was going to go on the ballot, and there was going to be a proposal to the voters for some level of tax increase in spending. So what we just tried to do at that point then is try to make good arguments to try to, let's make the tax increase reasonable, a little smaller than proposed, and then also put in a lot of protections for the taxpayer, like an expiration date that we're not responsible for cost overruns. That's just, you have to deal with things when you're not always going to get your way. I also mentioned I was going to talk a little bit about social media and how it plays in, and then I'm done here. I would encourage the use of social media when you can on these issues. Social media is read closely by most of the traditional media, and then often by other influencers as well. A lot of times it's an opportunity to bring new people to the table. Some of the board members we have on No More Stadium Taxes happen through that. Matt is one of our board members. I don't think we had even met before we had started reading each other's posts on Twitter. And then when we finally did meet a few weeks later, we already quickly had something to talk about, and he quickly became a board member. So that social media can introduce you to different kinds of people that you might not otherwise meet personally. It gives you the ability to give quick responses as things are happening. I mean, like if you're not on Twitter, then you should know that if there's a big meeting going on at City Council or the County Commission, there might be several reporters who are there or following it online, and they're tweeting it as it's happening. So that gives you an ability to either shoot back to them some stuff to look at, or tweet it out to everybody else to get a quick response on what's going on there. One caution on that is, avoid making any kind of offensive or overly controversial comments on social media, especially if you're using a group account. Like I'm one of the two who runs the No More Stadium Taxes Twitter account and Facebook page. So like if I got something that's maybe a little more controversial to say, I'll just be smart enough to go to my own account and say it there. You don't want to get your whole group in trouble over a comment that you could have just made on your own personal account. And one tactic that can work too is if you have a lot of followers or friends on your pages, it's easier to create some interplay between your account and your group's account. So what I mean by that is, like, my Twitter has over 1,100 followers, no more stadium taxes. I don't even know if we've reached 200 yet. So sometimes, like, I might post it to one account, retweet it from another account, or and so forth. So that way I can kind of use my own account and a group account to more maximize coverage. And that's pretty much what I had. Did we have any questions at this point?
Jeff, let's take the questions at the end, okay?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Let's give Jeff a round of applause. Thank you so much for coming. Next, we're going to hear from Kim Grant, who did a great job on the radio today. And Kim serves on the C.O.A.S.T board and the Warren County Central Committee. Before this, Kim was a 1st and 4th grade teacher who served as president of our local teachers union. Kim has been an advocate for accountability in education. She was elected to King's School Board in 2013 and served, I think what we will say is an eventful 4-year term, which I hope she'll tell you all about. And she ran because she wanted to bring needed reforms, financial oversight, and discipline to the King's School Board. Let's welcome Kim Grant, everyone.
Thank you, Dan, for that introduction. Dan introduced me pretty well, but I am a very proud C.O.A.S.T board member and have been on the board for 10 years. And I've always been a lifelong fiscal conservative. And my family used to say that I was my family would call me a Goldwater baby, which I would take as a compliment. But these days, I'd like to say I'm a Lindsey Graham groupie. So anyway, if you're passionate about education, I would love to see you run for your local school board. Our school boards desperately need folks who value financial oversight, accountability, and making sure students' needs are always the #1 priority. But I need to warn you that being on a school board is more difficult than anything I have ever done in my life, despite living in conservative Warren County. How did I, a so-called anti-school activist, since I was a member of C.O.A.S.T, that's what they referred to me as, yes, that is what they called me, and a lot of other things, get elected to the school board? It was one of the great honors of my life and a real surprise. I never thought I could win, given the outright lies and hate spread about me throughout my district. But when I did, with a lot of hard work and a lot of support of many, and especially my C.O.A.S.T friends. Talking to my brother these days, he said, in Kings, I was Trump before there was Trump. I tried to drain the swamp, but unfortunately it got filled right back up again, and things are as bad as ever. My activism all began when my children started school, and I spent time volunteering. In the classroom weekly. I couldn't understand why things as basic as paper and books were in such short supply in my district. It was my understanding teachers literally had to account for every piece of paper they used. They had an employee number, which they had to use to make copies, and when their limit was reached, they had to go to FedEx and get any additional copies using their own money. This just didn't make sense to me in such a high wealth district. I began to do research about budgets and state laws and began to attend school board meetings. And before too long, employees were calling me with serious concerns regarding the district. Through the years, I have spoken at board meetings, written letters to the editor, campaigned against levies when I thought they were excessive, and campaigned for school board candidates. When you do these kinds of things, you will become a target and labeled a troublemaker who doesn't care about your school district. Even with a degree and background in education, I was stymied by the system. As a parent and as a school board member, and by officials with remarkable rudeness, and was told my opinion didn't matter. I learned that negotiating the educational system in my school district is exhausting. It shouldn't be that hard to put children first, but in public schools it is. Therefore, that is why it is so important to elect independent thinkers to your board and not a bunch of bobbleheads. It is so bad that a few of us in our district are thinking about buying bobbleheads for our board. The level of bullying and intimidation I experienced as a board member was unbelievable. A friend gave the following description, and I quote, "With our dear friends simmering on the hot stove last night, things went on until 7:30 with some normal business, and then the fireworks began. I have never been in a room with such contemptible behavior in my life. I believe they would have pulled Kim's toenails out and cut her head off. It was that bad. So bad that we required a resource officer to be present at meetings. The reality is I've been bullied for years for doing what I thought was in the best interest of students and the district. Before my election, I filed a lawsuit with the help of Chris Finney and Kurt Hartman, forcing the district to release records when I was made aware of allegations of abuse of our special needs students. It was my understanding that the parents of these students were never informed until my attorney called them about what had happened to their children. One day, one child was duct taped to a chair and pushed into a bathroom screaming. This all happened in a nonverbal classroom. And if that wasn't horrible enough, we discovered the teacher involved was paid $80,000 to resign and given a glowing recommendation from the district. The district administration hoped it would all be swept under a rug and just go away. And if not for a brave whistleblower, that would have happened. It took this whistleblower's threats to go to the press and remove the teacher from the classroom, and it took my lawsuit for the truth to be told to the parents. When you hear it is all for the kids, don't believe it. If they really cared, the stuff wouldn't be covered up. The sad reality is it is all about the money. They fear bad press equals a risk of a levy failure, and the truth simply doesn't matter. After the election and taking my seat on the board, I was constantly attacked for simply asking probing questions and insisting on accountability and transparency. For that reason, I received threatening letters and emails. One of those emails came election morning from a powerful local attorney. He informed me he would be voting for me, and he looked forward to seeing me in situations and to scrutinize me for my conduct. He said I was going to learn a lesson, like former board members had learned. I responded with a thank you for his vote. And then he replied, and I quote, "We will see if you are thanking me in a year or two. This will be fun." After this email, I decided not to respond to this man, and he continued to send email after email, copying the press and other school board members, accusing me of having no integrity or transparency, and referred to me as Queen Kim, and ending his email with, "I told you this would be fun." And then there was the Facebook post following a board meeting from a fellow board member stating that there are just people in this world that are just evil. There is no other way to say it, evil. On the Facebook post, there was discussion of a need for a hitman. Since the hitman comment was made by a teacher and the board president and I felt threatened by the current environment at our board meetings, the school attorney agreed this needed to be reported to the police as a threat. But we asked that no action be taken at the police level, thinking the administration would take appropriate action. Instead, the board president and I continued to be attacked throughout the district. To be honest, the accusations against me in the district are too many to mention. My heart goes out to Judge Kavanaugh. I feel his pain. There is absolutely a corrupt machine at every level of government, and it starts at the school board level. If you question the status quo, watch out, you will be attacked. Believe it or not, a recall petition was begun in my very first year. I was that hated, and all because I asked probing questions and expected the administration to be accountable. Why have a board, I began to wonder. But even more worrisome was that everyone who supported me was attacked, just like Trump. There were anonymous threatening letters placed in teachers' mailboxes. Employees who participated in a board investigation involving allegations of missing money, favoritism, grade manipulation, harassment, and more. Employees who told the truth, I've been told, were retaliated against time after time, and it hasn't stopped. There was a verbal berating of the board president, and the board was sued for hiring an award-winning superintendent for $1. You'd think the taxpayers would be happy about that deal. He faced immediate attacks and was even called a mafia hitman, hired to do my bidding. Really? The worst of all of it is, if you're a parent and ask for help in our district, you might get sued. A concerned parent asking for information regarding bullying of their child was sued for filing a formal complaint against coaches, which she was told to file by the administration. Before too long, the board president and I were added to that suit. The suit involved not renewing the cheerleading coaches' contracts. The board had discovered by our own efforts that there had been complaints in a survey of the cheerleaders, and that had confirmed these issues. Beyond that, we had a nepotism issue, as the athletic director was the son of the cheerleading coach and was evaluating her, which is simply against the law. Even with 2 board members asking the superintendent not to bring these issues forward, he did. During the legal proceedings, it was discovered that another board member wrote on Facebook, and I quote, "I hope the attorney drags her through the mud and her buddy Kim with her." The response from the lady that was suing me, "If the attorney has his way, he will." It is sad that some in the district encourage and incite intimidation tactics against anyone who questions and wants accountability. There is such a fear of retaliation in my district, only a few people will stand up for the truth. I keep wondering if all of this will go away in consideration of our students. And what about the students and the parents? One parent who attended a board meeting wrote afterwards with the title, "Horrified Parent," and I quote, "Your disregard to either woman speaking on the consistent and deeply disturbing bullying issues you have within your district sickens me." I am not surprised, though. I too have had many issues with your district with bullying, and you did nothing. I have spent countless hours with the assistant principal trying to resolve horrendous issues involving my daughter and people she called friends, and your god-awful taste in cheerleading coaches. They all turned on her. She was all alone. You did nothing. I begged for help. You did nothing. This girl sank into a deep depression when the school told her she should go to school online. That was the administrator's answer. I have had parents, grandparents, students, teachers, and other employees reach out to me about this ugly culture in our schools of intimidation, retaliation, and bullying. When these individuals had, as they said, gone through the proper channels and received no help and got frustrated, and they finally called me, and I listened. I then addressed their concerns with the superintendent. I was told these individuals were troublemakers, and what they told me wasn't true. If people called me with concerns and wanted to remain anonymous, which I certainly understood, the only thing the administration cared about was who I was talking to, not the issue. The superintendent told me one of his goals was that I would never be called again. I thought that was not a very good goal, because if you are doing your job, you shouldn't care who calls me. After that, I had no trust in the administration. During my last year on the board, I became concerned the superintendent was trying to railroad a huge building levy. I don't think it is needed. I did my best at my last meetings, noting how good stewardship is critical to student success. The board should always seek potential solutions to concerns based on the district's finances. Behind the board's back, the administration had been interviewing architects to do a facilities master plan. The board had not been given data to justify this expense. We already had a master plan in place that had not been reviewed. Apparently, all of our buildings can be added onto if needed. The preceding are examples of my past activism and consequences. While I'm no longer on the board, my activism and concern for my district continues. And even with all this drama, I have made lifelong friends. And the reality is, you know these are your true friends when you are an activist.
Thank you. Thank you. What a story. That's the whole thing. I remember being at one of those meetings. I had never seen anything as electrically charged at that meeting of anything I'd ever been to in my life. It was something. I want to give her one more round of applause just for being in the belly of the beast. We'll take some questions at the end after our last speaker. Matt Waller was one of the organizers behind the recent Hamilton County sales tax referendum effort. He's taught U.S. history and government at the high school level for the last 18 years and is also a visiting professor of political science at Miami University. He also serves as a member and president pro tempore of the North College Hill City Council. Now, is the North College Hill official color purple?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Your new school is Elder, right? Elder. Matt holds a PhD in political science and is active in local politics as well as his community. Let's welcome Matt. Thank you, sir.
All right, so I get to follow that, which what a phenomenal story. I was going to say fantastic, but the end is, I guess, and that's what we get when we run into being activists. So I want to talk a little bit about just kind of my experiences with the sales tax levy and how I arrived there, and just kind of some of my past experience. And let's see, I have to aim this at. As a teacher, I should probably know this, but it's just the error. I guess, you know what? I need to turn it on. We'll try that one more time. There we go. I've kind of been active in speaking against a couple of things that I knew probably were lost causes, but I think there needs to be an opposition so that we sort out the ideas and so that we address these issues. The first is preschool promise, which raised taxes an inordinate amount in the city of Cincinnati. I fought that, and I was evil as well. And I got to debate Mr. Pepper at the Cincinnati Club, the senior Mr. Pepper, and it was kind of funny because I read his book, the Keys to Success in P&G, and they had a list of keys, and I used his keys in my speech. At the end, he wasn't too happy with me, but that's how it goes when you're on the record, I guess. The sales tax, the library tax, which I fought against because it didn't go through a sales tax levy review committee, and because I didn't think they needed the money. And I knew that that was going to lose, but there is a sort of a good ending to that story, or at least a continuing positive, in that they're going on Ohio checkbooks. So I rattled enough cages that they put Diane Cunningham-Redden on the board, and they pushed for Ohio checkbook, and they're going towards that. That's the first step in some transparency with the library, which has been spending an awful lot of money over a lot of years. And then the sales tax increase, which hit us this summer. So I was actually, when the sales tax increase occurred, I was out of town. My mom had wanted to see Civil War sites for the last 5 or 6 years. And I'm finally like, you know, now's the time. I'll take mom to Gettysburg, and I'll take her to Harper's Ferry. And then we went to Flight 93, and I get a call. They're like, where are you at? And it was Representative Brinkman. I'm like, well, I'm in Pittsburgh. He's like, can you be here by 3? And I'm, well, I guess, for a press conference. And I show up, just travel soot all over me. We had been through all kinds of storms. And that was the unveiling of the opposition to the sales tax increase. And those are the links to both the signatures submitted and the day that we won, kind of. I guess I should say. I think we won because it's not there. The kind of is the part is that the commissioners can vote to put it back on 2-1, obviously, because Commissioner Monzel, whose name has come up, by the way, I think in every single presentation tonight, to show you how he's here fighting for the taxpayers. That's the day. That stack my hand is on are the 38,000 signatures over 1,400 slips, and it was just an unbelievable feeling to get up there in front of the county administrative offices and just hand those in. And it was one of the reporters from, I think it was Channel 5 afterwards. He came up to me and he goes, "I bet you were a handful in school, huh?" And I think that that's what activism is all about. It's the guy in the back of the room or the girl in the back of the room that throws the spitballs and is a little bit too bored during because, you know, I don't want to do this. I want to do my thing. And they challenge authority because I think that activist is all about challenging authority and saying, hey, look, there needs to be boundaries on your behavior. And those are the links to the actual articles. So the battle, we needed 26,000 good signatures in 30 days, which is 866 per day. But that's really not the story because it takes about 10 days to get the process all set up, to get things printed, to get them distributed, things like that. And really, because of historical data that show us how many signatures are good, using 70% as a kind of as a benchmark, we really needed close to 37,000 in 20 days, which is 1,850 per day. And it was just an amazing, I looked at the numbers and I thought, oh my, what am I going to do about that? And very early on, we got a lot of support from folks like Commissioner Monzel, Barbara Hoddale, who's with us tonight, and others, Lou Williams, who helped as well, the Williamses. Everybody kind of chipped in. But the problem is when you're talking 1,850 per day, that's a very heavy lift. The media started picking it up. And what had started is me showing up at a press conference to get my picture taken with a bunch of political people. All of a sudden, my phone was ringing from 6 in the morning when the day started with petitions till my last call in the evening, usually with Representative Brinkman, around 12 o'clock, and often ending with a discussion about some history book or something. I'm like, Tom, I got to go to bed, man. I'm tired. I can't talk anymore because he lives through history too and had a lot of great discussions. So that was kind of the battle itself. How did we do it? We did end up with a great deal of grassroots. Many of you might, and I'm going to miss names tonight. I don't mean to because there have been so many people that were helpful. But I have to mention Mike Odioso, who's on the west side. He's also a teacher. He's at St. X. I'm an elder, so we're pitted enemies. And Odioso called probably 3 or 4 days into it. And he goes, man, this is going to be tough. And I said, yeah, I don't know. I said, and I don't see a lot of people jumping on right away. And he goes, make a vow right now with me that you're not going to quit. And I'll make the same vow that I won't quit. And that we'll fight through no matter what the numbers say. And the early numbers that came back were numbers that were a little bit depressing. And then the chairman of the Republican Party, Alex Grantefield, canceled his vacation because to push for this. And early on, like the 4th of July, which should have been a golden time, we came up short on the numbers. But something happened in that intermittent time. This issue started to galvanize people. And I think it was mentioned in one of the other presentations, the idea that there would be this tax applied without a vote just became so offensive to people that we were getting signatures in petition gatherers that were Democrats, Republicans, Green Party. I was going to Green Party houses, places I thought I would never be invited in, to give them petitions to get filled out. It was fantastic. And the numbers just started to amount up. And at the end, we did get some paid at the end to help, but we would have hit the number anyway without the paid. And the biggest problem is always to overcome that collective action problem. How do you get people to participate, especially when it's such a high number? Well, the one thing we did is that we were very transparent about which groups were getting how many signatures. And we made it competitive, and there were a couple groups that were falling short, and there was a shared Google Doc, and they would get a little snarky comment every once in a while from somebody to let them know that we're watching this. The other challenge is being a general versus a foot soldier. There are days when I didn't get a single signature, and I felt somehow, wait a second, I'm letting people down here. I'm asking them to go out and get signatures, and I haven't gotten a single one today. It's 7 o'clock, and I'm still in my spare bedroom, which I use as an office, making phone calls. And it dawned on me that, yeah, I wasn't, but I'm I'm dropping off petitions to other people. I'm calling up people. I'm getting events. I'm linking people to groups. The important stuff in order to use a force multiplier. Instead of me getting one signature, getting 10 people to each get 10 signatures. And that's how that multiplication is how you do it. And that was often hard for me. I'm a very hands-on person, and the idea that I'm saying, hey, go get some signatures, but I'm at home right now telling you to get signatures seems to be a little bit of an irony to me that duplicitous, and I didn't like it. But once I realized what my role was in this, if Gary Jeff wanted somebody, if Brian Thomas wanted somebody on the radio, that I needed to be on there talking about it, then it became easier. Why this worked, the number one reason, great people helping, and I've already named a number of them as well, and also to have Commissioner Monzel on your side. That is an important, that gives it legitimacy. The one thing I've learned about Commissioner Monzel, he's got that mathematical engineer-like brain that usually people like me that are more creative don't understand, but he's able to boil it down to what the numbers mean. And when you look at the numbers, he's like, we can make there's some things we can cut here first that we haven't tried, then come back. And it became such a simple kind of answer at that point. It's, yeah, you're right. And it's really all about the stewardship of taxpayer dollars. And that's really all I've ever been about. And it's about the process, making sure the process. Cleveland is a great example of a city that just added a small tax without a vote, and another, and another, and another, and another, and they continued to add it. Once you set that precedent, where are you going to go next? And that's kind of what what I was fighting for. And as Kim said, be prepared throughout this. So what happened? Immediate challenges. So this was a big deal because of the Pureval Shabbat race, which just remarkably, the latest polls show Shabbat up by, I think, 11. So maybe that's loosening up a little bit, which makes me happy too. So immediate challenges from the DNC, they sent lawyers. The Ohio Democratic Committee, Hamilton County Democrats. So these forms are stored in Dusty Rhodes' office, I think for 7 or 10 days, I can't remember exactly. And people can go look at them and make sure that everything is copacetic, everything's done properly. They had multiple people there every hour that was open, looking through these and trying to find any error that they could, and they couldn't. The beauty is that they could find one or two. They went after one or two people for some mistakes that they made or some miscalculations. When you're talking about 38,000 signatures, you're gonna screw something up. It's just how it works. And we had one or two of those things. But when they couldn't find anything, that really sent, and I got calls from people at City Hall, people from the county that are like, man, you've turned over the table here, you guys. You've got these folks scared. They're cornered, they don't know what to do. And I heard stories of doors being slammed and shouting and things like that. And finally, with Portune and Driehaus cornered and Pureval campaign was concerned this was going to draw the conservative base. Then this infamous Katz and Teller memo shows up, and the Katz and Teller memo says, hey, what the commissioners did, even though they had done it this way forever, was somehow illegal. And commissioners Portune and Driehaus jumped on it and said, well, here's our safety valve. Here's our chance to escape. And I was at the commissioner meeting when they then withdrew it. And this is even after Joe Dieter said that, look, what you've done here has not been illegal. So we won kind of by not getting it on the ballot, but we still haven't set the precedent of the people need to decide. It's still out there, I think, is the opportunity in the future, perhaps, for another commission to come out and try to do the same thing. But in the back, that we did what no one thought could be done because of this cooperation. And what to be prepared about, just again, like Kim experienced, when I was against preschool promise, I hated children, and I was called a criminal, despite the fact my entire adult life has been spent in education. I'm like, well, it's obviously the cash that you make as a teacher. I do get a lot of pens. I have a lot of pens everywhere, but yeah, I'm like, really? I hate children? I just spent 11 hours today with kids. How many have you spent? Yeah, you sent yours to me. That doesn't seem to be the kind of the case here. When I was against the increase in the Hamilton County Public Library levy, given that the levy didn't go through the tax levy review committee, I hated books and education, and I found that to be so laughable. I'm like, really? I do? I have 2 master's degrees, a PhD, and I've been published over a dozen times. I hate books. You go in my house, there's so many books you can't walk through it. My mom made the observation, gosh, that couldn't be further from the truth. The fact that you are fighting this shows how much you do care, because you want them to buy books with the levy money. You got this odd idea that we should be educated with that money and not, make signs and have 120 copies of Bridget Jones's Diary, the movie, 6 copies of the book Night. And we hear that 70% of high schoolers don't know what the Holocaust is. I don't think that I think there's probably a connection there. And when I went against the county sales tax increase without the vote of the people, I wanted a county, and I love this, I keep this memo by my desk. A Democrat gave it to me. This went out to the precinct executives and the members of the executive committee. And I'm not too sure that the Democrats are happy that I have this. This solution's fair because it'll prevent layoffs of 200 Hamilton County employees, such as 911 takers, sheriff's deputies, which I found ironic, spelled incorrectly, and crime lab technicians. Imagine having to call 911 in an emergency and being asked to please hold. That's the kind of government Republicans want. This was issued the same week as the plush hearings. It's not by accident it was issued then. And it infuriated me. And I'm like, you're going to come with this? I'll knock on doors at 2 a.m. I mean, I'm not going to back down for it. And then we were called despicable. Commissioner Portune said, these people are despicable. Yes, imagine that, calling you into question to be despicable. So I'm despicable, and I don't want 911 to work, despite the fact that I do all this and fight for all these community causes, hundreds of hours without a nickel of compensation. I mean, this is what I believe in, and this is what my belief system is about, trying to help make government transparent and more responsive to the people. So thank you.
Let's give it up. Let's give it up for Matt. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you.
We're going to take a few questions, and Betty's going to grab the microphone. Is going to pass the microphone around to the speakers, and I'll come and you can ask your questions. Who's got a question for any of our speakers? And I do want to let you know we do have the Ed Bell memo copied on your way out, what Ed was going to go over, and this is like the gold standard here. I'd grab one. Who's got a question for any of our speakers? Anyone? Okay, great. Barbara.
Hi, so I'm trying to fight a tax increase, and when I'm making up my walk lists, I pretty much ignore Democrats. I don't really like trying to debate issues with Democrats, and so it just takes up time I don't have. And I wondered if you guys agree with that, if you do the same thing, or if you try to get the support of people on the left.
You're still in Madeira, right? Is this on, guys? Okay. Is this still on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. What I'd say on that is you kind of have to figure out the lay of the land in your community and how this issue is lining up. I know on the jail tax, there was opposition across the board. Now there was also support across the board. So, I mean, if I was in your shoes, what I'd probably do is start by focusing on likely voters of all parties and get a lay of the land and figure out, is this one of those issues where Republicans are generally against it and Democrats are generally for it? My guess is perhaps not, because I think your city council is mostly Republican, and it's these Republicans who are pushing the tax increase. So right there tells me that this might not be the partisan issue that it often is on tax increases. So I guess if I had to sum it up, I'd say dig a little deeper first. And then when you have some data and some experience, then maybe readjust how you do it.
And I rank those voters according to if they've participated in midterm elections or not, and give them a point value. So I would go when Jeff says likely voters, I mean people that have experienced voting in midterm elections. You'll get a lot of people in my particular district. 70% of the people are presidential year only voters. It's not going to do you any good to contact them. They may contact you, and that's fine. But that's what Jeff I think is talking about with likely voters.
Other questions? Any questions? Right here.
Hello, my name is Carl. Do you have any suggestions as to how to overcome all of the negative social media posts that are posted from the other side?
Thank you.
This is right up my alley. I go right, well, I mean, I'm tempted to say I go right back at them. Sometimes I do that. It really depends on like, where is it coming from? Is it coming from some fool with 4 followers? That might not be somebody you really have to engage with. Now, if it looks like a more organized campaign, or it's coming from someone, in an important position, you may want to combat it. See if media is picking up on it. Basically, kind of figure out, is this really, is there something going on with this that's going to impact the debate? In that case, you want to respond to it. But like I said, if it's a fool with 5 followers, those kind of people you don't necessarily have to engage with.
Other questions for our speakers? Right here.
My name's Kevin. The school board issue. What I have found is school districts, they're the largest employer of a city. I mean, they're writing most paychecks than any other business in most cases. So if that's the case, where's the waste? Why are teachers having to buy materials out of their own pocket? And then second, if you would follow up on if the school board members in most cases are not paid, do they get perks and stuff? Why the resistance to change?
Well, school board, members get very little money. We get a stipend of $120 a meeting. I think that's the maximum. That's nothing. That's the maximum the state of Ohio will allow. I think the big issue starts at the top, at the administrative level with our superintendents. And if you have a certain type of superintendent, their priorities. And so in the case, this was many years ago when I first got involved, when our staff had to, they didn't have paper or they tracked it that much. That was years ago. I don't know what the situation was there, but we've always had plenty of money in our district. So that was a choice they were making. That was where they were going to save money. But there's always a lot of waste, I'd say, at the top. That's where the focus needs to be. Not at the building level. It's at the top. It's at central office, yes. A lot of districts are top heavy.
Anybody have go ahead, Matt. Any other questions for our speakers? Let's give them a round of applause, everybody. Jay, is my microphone on? So I wanted to tell you real quick, just bear with me, just a couple real quick stories. The first one I'm going to tell is my favorite Jeff Capel story. I don't think he knows this one coming. It goes back to the jail tax when he decided to take on the great sheriff, Simon Lease. And you'll have to tell me if I've got the facts right here. But Simon Lease was wanting to build jail cells that cost about $100,000 each or so. And in Kentucky, they were building them for about half that. And he decided to send a letter out to his 1,274 employees, telling them that they all had to get behind this and they had to do it. And Jeff, I believe you caught wind of that, and you said, if he's going to send a letter, I get to send a letter too. Is that the fact? And it was an incredibly great moment as an activist where he took on the belly of the beast, and I really felt like he won. Let's give him another round of applause. So I'm sure any of our activists will talk to you by email or whatever. I just wanted to tell you, you've heard about Kim having all her hardships and everybody's worked hard and Matt got threatened and all that. It can be fun too, okay? It really can be. I wanted to share with you just 2 lighthearted moments I had working on a couple projects. I woke up one day, I was in Evendale. I owned a building with like my friends here. I owned a building right next to where the Walmart is now. And I woke up and found out that 140 out of 141 properties had been blighted in Evendale. Had no idea about it, didn't know it was coming, didn't know anything. And these are some great properties, okay? And you know, they had sent a guy around and paid him like $75,000 to see if there was like trash in the back parking lots and things like that. And so I had this one really evil friend, and he was over on Reading Road, and we decided what we were going to do. And what we decided to do was we decided to construct a huge sign, I don't know if you can see it here, that was right on the edge of Evendale that said, "Notice you are entering a blighted area." It was the most obnoxious yellow and red sign, and everybody that was coming into Evendale got to see that, and they thought, "Oh my goodness, do I need to be careful where I'm at?" And they threatened us and said, "You got to go before the signboard," and all that, and we never did. But it was really, really fun. We had a great time with it. And then just one other story, just to tell you, we haven't talked about public records tonight, but if you haven't been to one of our public records classes, you have to come to one, because that is where you find out information about what's going on in your area. And I wanted to just give you a really short example. During the same time when I was in Evendale, the county came, the village came up and said, "We're going to do a study of the business corridor." Okay, and you've heard it in all your communities, and this is where they're going to spend a couple $100,000. They have you in to have sessions with you. And my evil friend and I, we didn't really trust the whole process, and so we decided we were going to record it when we went to the session, and so we did. And surprisingly, when the report came out that cost a couple $100,000, it had all these conclusions that we never heard a one of during the whole session. So a couple weeks ago, my wife said, "Hey, do you want these?" She found these in the basement, and I thought I would just bring them to you. So what we did was we sent a public records request to the city and said, "We want all the whiteboard charts that were done at that meeting." And I think they charged us like $20 a piece to copy them. But lo and behold, the conclusions that were on these charts we got didn't come anywhere close to the conclusions that the village had come up to embark on a whole new building process that was going to cost literally millions of dollars. And it was a great joy when we even dug a little deeper. We found an email from the guy who did the study that told the development director in these words, "What came out of the meeting is not what you concluded." And that was a great gotcha moment. And really what it just takes you. Just, you know, if we got a couple people here, a couple people there on board tonight to go out into your communities, can you imagine the great work you could do? And with that in mind, thanks for coming tonight, and we hope to see you Thursday night at Wiedemann Brewery. Thank you, everybody. We were in Evendale. We didn't have a retail store there. And I lived in Evendale for 17